David, not the promise to Solomon that God doesn't take the entire kingdom away and give it entirely to Solomon's subordinate, someone that is outside of the house of David. In addition, why is there never ever any reference to Solomon whenever there is a mention of the kingdom, the throne, and the Messiah promised to the Jewish people, but always a reference to David and David only? And using the historical criterion that lines up with the scriptural evidence, why do we have the phrase Messiah ben David in each and every point in time of the history of the Jewish tradition, and not even once is there a mention of Messiah ben Shlomo? Again, it is so obvious that it's just insane to argue about this. You said that the passage of the curse of Jehoiachin is so powerful that missionary scholars say that the curse was taken away. But that is not only the conclusion of the missionary scholars, whatever that may be, but try to raise this argument on the Messiah Truth Forum, for example. To my knowledge, the leading online Jewish anti-missionary forum, and see what they will tell you if they will be honest when you raise this argument. They don't use it anymore. Only those that are not familiar with the counter-argument of this objection, or those that stubbornly persist in raising this argument, still use it. And they also use Jeremiah 52 for this, which I raised in my previous video, which you did not address. I also quoted Haggai 2 verse 22 and 23, which I did reference in my video, in spite of your claim that I didn't reference to it. Watch the video and you will see me putting in text Haggai 2 and the numbered verses. You raised the objection that this prophecy is about the kingdom of Rome and or Babylon, that it wasn't done in Zerubbabel's day. However, that is not the point of this prophecy. This prophecy is about the restoration of the kingdom of Israel, i.e. the Messianic kingdom. This restoration will happen in the end of days. Look at the words in verses 21 and 22, where it says that God will shake up the heavens and the earth. This is typical end time scenario, and God will overthrow all the thrones and all the kingdoms that exist anywhere, so that there will be no more kings and no more kingdoms. And then God will set up one kingdom. Who will the only king be then? Who will bear the royal authority? Exactly, the Messiah, son of David. And God declares he will choose Zerubbabel as the restoration of the throne of David, upon which Messiah will reign. Meaning that from Zerubbabel on, God will establish the throne of David by making him a signet, restoring the royal authority in Israel. Now, what is a signet? A signet is a ring with which royal authority is exercised. Now, if God stops royal authority with Jehoiachin and renews it with Zerubbabel, using the exact same phraseology, what does that mean according to you? In other words, what else according to you has God chosen Zerubbabel for by making Zerubbabel a signet, if not for the restoration of the Messianic promise? There is actually no response to the case that I made in the video regarding the text from Numbers. You claimed in the video that the lineage can only be passed down to fathers and not to mothers. I debunked that claim, that much is obvious. So then you go back to the cursed king defense. So here's the icing on the cake. You keep claiming that Jehoiachin was cursed and that no king can come from him, and that's why his brother Tzidkiyahu replaced him, about whom you yourself said that he was the only other heir to the throne next to Jehoiachin. Even if Zedekiah replaced Jehoiachin, what does that prove? Do you really believe that Zedekiah carried the Messianic lineage from now? Let's take your argument. If you do, then please explain to all who watch this video who are the descendants of Zedekiah and what has become of them. In case you didn't know, let me point you to Jeremiah 52 and read the entire chapter. Who of Zedekiah's descendants survived the onslaught of the king of Babylon? And who of his descendants came out of exile? Exactly, not one. They were all killed by the Babylonians, and Zedekiah was left with no offspring, died in prison in exile, leaving only the descendants of Jehoiachin as the only legitimate heirs to the throne of David, according to you, from the line of Solomon. So if you, Islamat, want to make the case for Solomon, then you're stuck, because you claim that only the descendants of Solomon can inherit the throne, provided they don't come from Jehoiachin. Yet the only descendants of Solomon that came out of exile alive to be able to inherit the throne are the descendants of Jehoiachin, the exact line that you try to repudiate in your videos. That's why Matthew had no choice but to trace the line of Yeshua to David through Jehoiachin. It's often said by anti-missionaries that Matthew shows his ignorance when he talks about issues in the Tanakh, but it is the anti-missionaries showing their ignorance and desperation when they raise points like this and showing the expertise of Matthew. There simply is no other traceable option. Can you now see why Jewish anti-missionaries have declared this argument to be indefensible? So the entire cursed king defense will not help your case, since it's completely useless. But I will respond to the claim that the Jews not expecting Muhammad means that he wasn't foretold. Well, the only reason why I raised this is because you made the argument that because the Jewish people never expected a divine Messiah or a Messiah as portrayed in the New Testament, therefore we are wrong about Yeshua's identity. I only pointed out that if you are consistent and you hold yourself to the same standards, then you will have to conclude the same thing when it comes to Muhammad, since the Jewish people never expected a Gentile prophet. You can't have your cake and eat it too, Islamat. Using double standards only exposes the weakness of your argument. So the argument was not that because he isn't prophesied, he isn't a legitimate prophet. That was not it. The argument was, if you're going to hold us to one standard, but yourself to another, then your argument is weak. But if you do hold yourself to the same standard, then out your faith goes. Furthermore, I asked you to provide proof for the prophecies about Muhammad because the Quran boldly claims that he is prophesied in the Torah and the Gospels. So if the Quran claims this, and we don't find anything about Muhammad in those sources, then what does it tell you about the origin of the Quran? So that's why I'm asking a few references. Also, I issued a challenge to you in my video asking for a few references about the Messiah in the Tanakh. You claim that Yeshua was the Messiah that the Jewish people were waiting for, but we can't base this on the Tanakh. But you claim at the same time that there are references to Yeshua in the Tanakh. Please show us these references so that we can know what you are talking about. Because the way I see it, there's only one Messiah promised, and if Yeshua is it, then there is no way he can fit into the Islamic parameters. Even if you think he is to be just a human Messiah, he still is nothing like the Islamic Messiah. So that was it again. I think I have successfully demonstrated that the arguments you raised in your initial video hold no weight whatsoever in light of the entire testimony of the scriptures, and I hope that there will be sincere reconsideration of your arguments. Thank you and shalom.